All right.
How's it
Can you hear me,
going?
Greg?
I can hear you, Rob. How are you?
Perfect, man. We're pulling this off. We're doing good here. All right, everybody, live with Greg Wycliffe. I don't know if you guys have seen this guy before. He's been popping up in my feed on multiple platforms lately. I reached out to Greg recently and I said, hey, it would be really fun to talk about all of the crazy shit that's happening in Canada in 2022. So here he is, guys. Greg, if you don't mind, maybe just introduce yourself to everybody. Let them know where they can jump on and follow you at, things like that, right off the bat here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Rob. I am Canadian. My name's Greg. I've been making content for a few years now. And originally, I was just a professional in Toronto, just an urban professional. And I saw things getting so weird in this country that I initially joined the People's Party of Canada with Max Bernier in 2019 before it was popular. And I started to make some content doing that because I needed to fight the misinformation and everything. And before I knew it, I was kind of making parody songs to try and get people's attention and also educate people on what's going on in this country and also try to make light of it and make fun of the many characters that we see on a day-to-day basis. And most recently, I went to the Trucker Convoy and I plugged lavalier mic into my my trusty little cell phone here. And I started to do interviews with people who attended there, totaling over 300 different people who I talked to attending the convoy on camera. So, yeah, I guess sometimes I do journalism a little bit. But yeah, I tried to
Probably a lot more and a lot more effectively than actual, people that label themselves as actual journalists do it too.
That's right. And yeah, it's more affordable too because, our tax money goes towards these crappy people, crappy poor excuses for journalists and also the CBC as well, right? So I'm more affordable. Trust me.
Yeah, you're not funded by billions of taxpayer dollars.
Yeah,
right?
but I am also streaming on my channels, Rob. So if you could give a quick introduction to my audience.
That's no problem at all, man. That's actually, I didn't quite realize that part. Yeah, so Rob Boutilier been doing this since 2017. It was when I first started getting pissed off, and I was pretty unpolished in 2017, Greg. I'm not going to lie, and I gradually became better and better at what I do,
Nice.
and learned more and more. And if I knew now what like if I knew in 2017 what I know now, I probably wouldn't have lasted as long as I have in this game because I would have been even more pissed off than I was when I started.
Mm.
So I've been doing it for, I'm roughly 5-ish years now. Doing it not for profit the whole time. This is a passion project for me. This is the work I've been doing. Recently dropped a clothing line, Freedom Origins Clothing, hat, hoodie. It's anti-communist, it's anti-Marxist, it's anti-government, a lot of it. And when I say anti-government, I don't mean I don't think there needs to be government. I just mean that there needs to be enough pressure on government that they
Mm-hmm.
behave properly, right? I think there always has to be a battle between the forces of the populace and the government to maintain balance. I don't think you're ever going to get rid of it, but government needs consequence, and that's what's missing from society today, right?
Yeah, because if no one opposes the government, then they're just going to have free reign to do whatever you want, and that's not really a democracy anymore.
Well, and Greg, I think that's one of the biggest learnings I have is, a lot of the anti-government people out there are not actually technically anti-government. They know
Mm.
that there needs to be something there, but
They're
it's almost like,
anti this government.
well, and I wouldn't even say that. It's like if you train martial arts or any kind of combat sports, they always tell you to punch through the target. So
Mm.
if your objective is just to keep government in check, you'll only achieve half of your objective. If your objective is to throw the balance off,
Mm. Mm.
then you might actually reach a healthy balance there, right? So people whose intent is to overthrow, I think a lot of them aren't actually intending on doing that. They just want to create enough pressure that when it hits balance, it's way more in our favor than it would be if we were just trying to keep them in check, I guess is the point that I try to make here, right?
Yeah, that's a good distinction to make. Now, shall we? Nice mug, by the way.
Uh,
Nice mug.
Love it. I
Uh,
sold out of these real quick too, man. It was crazy. There's a lot of people that have that sentiment. I have so I have some fuck Trudeau mugs left. You're getting one. I've got more of these coming, and I'm actually branching out to fuck Marxists
okay,
mugs as well
nice,
too, right? So yeah, I
nice.
think people are gonna like those, and it's just
You
a
can
way
get
to rock your thoughts,
the
right?
whole collection for the whole family.
Hey man, exactly. That's what we're here to do, right?
All right, shall we get into to the our top 5 lists of the 2022 craziest things.
Well, the most batshit crazy things that came out of Canada in 2022. We're going to start with 5. And, I got some cool...
So we're going to go 5 to 1, and we'll go back and forth. Your number 5, my number 5. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You want me to start?
Sure.
All right. Just let me get my notes out here. And yes, guys, we did research here. We actually are super professional commentators. All right. You ready for the animation?
Oh, there's an animation. Let's go.
That's it.
That was it? Number 5.
It's real short. All right. My number 5 is, I think the disarmament of Canadians is, and the blindness to the disarmament of Canadians is absolutely incredibly insane. I think a lot of the stuff we're seeing, like, it's a fight for number 1 no matter how you frame it. So I've kind of gotten a little more subtle with it. My number 5 is the banning of the Buttmaster, which is a firearm, and it's a joke firearm. It was made, it's a one-shot 22 caliber firearm. One shot, it's done. That's it. There's only one in existence. So to demonstrate the lack of confidence, there's only one.
There's only one that exists?
Well, so I watched an interview of the guy. He's going to make more. He's going to make more because Trudeau made it super popular, this Buttmaster. And the reason it's called the Buttmaster is you can conceal it. You can conceal it in a very specific way if you wanted to, because it's such a small firearm, small caliber, small design.
Wow. Rob, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about toys or what is this?
So here, Greg, apparently in Canada, the risk of murder via Buttmaster is so high that the Trudeau government decided that they need to ban it, along with many other hunting rifles, things like that. So my number 5, the 5 most batshit crazy things to come out of Canada, is Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party banning the Buttmaster, a firearm that's designed specifically to be concealed in a certain location on your body, because it poses such a threat to Canadians.
Mm-hmm. Well, knowing who Trudeau hangs around with, maybe that's kind of part of the reason, right? Someone in my Facebook,
a risk to him, right?
Matthew Myers on Facebook said, "Does it have a vibrate mode? The Buttmaster?"
When they come out with a fully automatic Buttmaster, then we might be talking, I don't know. Are we going too far here, Greg?
No, it's fine. This is a family show, Rob. Come on. It's a family show. What's going on
Number
here?
5, the Buttmaster.
The Buttmaster. Okay. I specifically that firearm because it's like this, or do you mean just like the banning in general?
Well, the banning in general is like my number 1 for sure, but I tried to break it down. Like I talk all day about the banning. I talk about all kinds of different things. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually really trying to get down to the gritty with some of this stuff and say this specific Canada's crazy to begin with. Mm-hmm. The disarmament of Canadians is beyond insanity at this point. But on top of that, they've set their sights on the Buttmaster.
The Buttmaster. Right? It shows how absurd it is. But I want to ask you about, do you have any other, firearm related top 5? Or is this the one?
No, I don't have any other firearm related top 5. Now, I can talk all day about the disarmament of Canadians and should.
Yeah. The question I'd like to ask is, do you think there should be a Second Amendment in Canada?
100 million %. And I actually believe that Section 7 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in Canada, life, liberty, and security of the person, if interpreted appropriately, would be the equivalent of the Second Amendment. For the simple reason that they've made a huge stretch in nullifying every abortion law in Canada under Section 7, life, liberty, and security of the person. But you're telling me that nobody can make an argument that we should be able to be armed to protect life, liberty, and security of the person. That's insane to me.
Interesting. Right? That's interesting when you juxtapose it with abortion as well. That's wild.
Well, it's just we have to. Everybody talks about whataboutism, Greg, and I actually believe whataboutism is important. Everybody says, "Oh, that's whataboutism." It's like, what's wrong with it?
Yeah.
Why can't I say this is unjust because you've justified other things?
People usually use whataboutism when you make a strong comparison that
Exactly.
challenges their argument, right? Or their flawed logic or whatever.
I'm a firm believer, and here back to the punching through the target statement I made, Greg. Every firearms law in Canada should be repealed. Every one.
Okay.
If we were to put up an adequate fight to have every firearm law repealed, we might land somewhere that's reasonable by the time we're done that fight.
Mm-hmm.
But because Canadians stay in this zone that the government constructs for us
Mm-hmm.
of fighting against what their intentions are, we always lose. So if the gun lobby, if Canadians stood up and said, no, repeal every law and we won't settle for less, maybe when the dust settles, we'll end up somewhere that's half reasonable, right?
Yeah. What I can't stand is with, since the Nova Scotia shooting, all of these, was it before? No, I think since the Nova Scotia shooting, Bill Blair, our public safety minister, he's always talking about, firearms and they're dangerous and they're dangerous. And these liberal MPs are literally acting like illegal guns don't exist. Like there's no such thing. There's no statistics showing that they clearly cause way more deaths than lawful gun owners. And it's the most like wanting to punch a hole in the wall, wanting to rip my hair out when they talk about firearms, deaths, and safety. And it's like, you guys are ignoring the fact that illegal firearms exist and are coming over our borders. And in some cases, you've even lowered the sentences to people who are caught gun smuggling and all this. And it's just...
Let's be clear, though. They're not ignoring anything. They're very aware of what's happening with illegal firearms. If we take their words at face value, nothing they're doing makes any sense whatsoever. Everything they say there's too many suicides via firearm, so they need to disarm Canadians. They say that. There's roughly 4 times as many suicides as there are homicides annually via firearms. And they say people shouldn't have firearms because they're committing suicide. But what have they introduced, Jeff? Or Greg, sorry, Jeff.
Well, they said, we'll do it for you.
I was talking to a friend, Jeff, recently.
No, it's okay.
Right before you. No.
Yeah, we'll do it for you.
Greg? They've introduced suicide, like government assisted, like the government will kill you.
Mm-hmm.
They've introduced that. And now they're saying we need to disarm you because you'll do it to yourself. But guys, and we'll get into this a little further in the list here, but guys, if you're a Paralympian veteran who needs wheelchair access, maybe you should consider suicide. That's what this government's doing. So nothing they're saying is what their actual intent is. They're not trying to make anything safer. They want firearms out of the hands of Canadians. That's it. Simple as that, right?
Yeah. And I'm going to bring up a point in my top 5 later, but it relates to firearms, which is, you have all these lefties who are all of a sudden like pro-war in Ukraine, and they're like, we need as much money in there as possible. We need as many firearms as possible. Send as many as we can to the Ukraine, to Zelensky and his green sweater. And then it's like, oh no, you can't have them here. No, Canadians, we don't need those. They don't do anything. They're not good for you. We're going to send billions of dollars to Zelensky to arm every man, woman, and child. It's just gotten to such absurd levels, right? Like, it's not really anything new, but it's just like the hypocrisy is just so obnoxious now.
And Greg, they don't like so you've got the government with their intentions, but then you get the lefties that support it. They're the useful idiots that actually think that the government means what they're saying. Right? When it comes down to this, they're the ones who actually believe what's being said and what's being projected. And these people are under an illusion that the majority of the planet lives peacefully and doesn't need firearms right now. They're under an illusion that everywhere's is like the West and like Canada and like Europe, where in fact, the majority of the planet lives with, the government's boot on their neck way more so than what we actually think is happening here. So they think we made it, guys. We don't need guns anymore. And it's like, huh? Like, what?
Yeah.
Hang on, guys. You might want to hold off on that, right?
Exactly. All right. So I'll go to my number 5.
Okay, let's hear it.
Of top most insane things. And this one is, my number 5 is insane in a good way. I thought it was insane in 2022 when a whole bunch of truck drivers were like, F this, we're going to Ottawa. Like, it was such a, thankfully, not thankfully, like, we try to forget, if you're not jabbed, I'm not jabbed, and I try to forget how messed up it was before the convoy started. The rhetoric was, taxing the unjabbed. Do we tolerate these people? Maybe we should just throw them in jail. There was one study about that where 25% of Canadians said throw them in jail for not being jabbed. It was crazy. It was totally insane. And when the convoy started and it started to build and it happened, it was insane, because it's like, oh my God, like there's hope for this country. I thought we were all just asleep. I thought we were all just lost. I thought it was just, it was a very dark time before the convoy, and it was so insane in a good way to see what it came to be, to see it happen, because it really, there are theories that maybe there was controlled opposition trying to lead the convoy, whatever. But regardless of that, it snowballed into something that was like much, much bigger than anyone could control. And it was like this peaceful thing. It was this amazing thing. And I think I got to experience what it means to be Canadian for the first time. I got to see it. I got to feel it. I got to touch it. I got to, experience it, videotape it, talk to so many people. And that was really, it was insane in a good way. And that it's like, there's actually hope for the country. There's actually people in this country that care. And we raised more money than any major political party. So it's like there's obviously, it's not just a fringe minority, of course. But yeah.
So what I'm going to say to that, Greg, is touche, my friend. I bring up the Buttmaster, and you bring up the most unifying period of time in recent Canadian history. Cheers.
Yeah.
I think you won number 5 just right there.
Hey, ain't nothing wrong with a Buttmaster. Come on. It is pretty, yeah. Nothing wrong with
dude,
the
actually, so that whole thing for me was like, what I loved about that was it was like the adults showed up.
Yep.
What that was for me was a great example of, it's like Pastor Art Pulowski when he was in his church, and he was, he was
get out,
Troy,
get out.
You uncircumcised swine. Like the stuff that guy was saying, it's like,
is that what he said?
Oh my God! I had him on
never
my
caught that quote.
That's what he was telling me. He said, I was like, wow.
Oh my gosh.
But it took a while. But the convoy, when they showed up, was like, now the adults have showed. And to your point, yeah, there's lots of talk about the organization and the leadership, the whole 9 yards. My whole thing was all those people out there doing that for the right reasons. I support every one of those people, and what a movement. And what's hilarious to me is how, these pro-vaxxers, these pro-vax mandate people, these pro-lockdown people are like, oh, the convoy didn't do anything, but it was a waste of time. Look at all the shit that fell after they showed up. Yeah. Everything started collapsing as soon as the convoy showed up. It's like, that was actually one of this entire time, when it comes to rights and freedoms being violated, that was the single most greatest example of what organized, opposition, what organized non-compliance will result in. It's the same thing I talk about with firearms. It's like, if everybody just stood up and said, nope, not only are we not going to comply, but we're actually going to get out and we're going to have a movement. We're actually going to make it uncomfortable for you. We're going to introduce consequence for your actions, government. Look at the results. Imagine if that happened like week 1, week 2, week 3. Imagine if we were passionate enough
of lockdowns, early, you mean?
Right?
Of lockdowns.
Yeah, imagine, right? It's like, man, yeah, it was insane. It gave me goosebumps, man.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so many stories, so many people have made beautiful connections over the convoy. But I wanted to say, because people are always asking me like, oh, what do you think of Pierre? And who do we vote for? And like, who's he going to fight for us? And I just tell them, oh, listen, over the past 3 years, who fought for me? Who actually changed something? It wasn't a politician. It wasn't an MP. It wasn't a conservative. It was a truck driver. It was a blue collar worker, a whole bunch of them driving to Ottawa. That's what changed something. And like you said, despite what all these people say, if that didn't change anything, there was even one article that said, the restrictions are going away, not because of the convoy though. Like literally in brackets, it said not because of the convoy. And it's like, really? But yeah,
Dude,
the
I
second
actually want to tell you one of the 5 most batshit crazy things I wanted to introduce into this live stream. Somebody recommended
an honorable mention. Yeah.
Calgary Mayor elect.
Oh
That
no.
TikTok guy. They were like, "Oh, you need to bring
Oh
that guy up." I was like, "Oh,
no.
but he's the perfect embodiment of the people who are like, it did, yeah. The thousands of truckers did nothing, guys. They didn't do anything. It was a waste of time, right?"
Yeah, no, I'm sorry if my energy changed. Just like I almost like refuse to even talk about that person or give them attention, to be honest.
I like to give him attention just to make him look foolish because as soon as he gets the spotlight, he just acts like a complete moron, and it's great. I enjoy every minute of it.
I don't know. I see the way he is, and I just kind of feel bad for him. And I also kind of am like, man, people are actually like this. Like, that's really sad.
Oh, but he's the embodiment of what we're up against, man. And the worst part is there's an army of people who think like that.
Well,
That's what I think. People within our movement, Greg, they don't realize what we're dealing with here. They think we're dealing with some kind of rational, logical human being before us.
Yeah, no.
And it's like the more we can expose it as this is it.
Right.
This is who's taking your shit away. This is who's fighting to have your rights taken away. The more people are like, "Oh, wait a minute. That's who I need to defeat."
Yeah, and it's hard to get them to realize that too, because
they think everybody's way smarter. Dude, I was bullied a lot growing up, and I got into a lot of fights. And every fight I ever got into, in my brain, that human being was going to be the biggest nightmare I ever encountered in my life. And do you know how many times that was true?
Never.
0 times.
Yeah, 0.
It was always like, what? That was it? It's like, so, you know how it is, man.
Yeah. And it's, and I've told people this, like, I actually, my parents are a little bit red pilled now since the convoy. That's kind of an interesting story. So like I was live streaming while I was there. I ended up having a situation where my dad even hung up on me like the week before because it was like, oh, what they're doing at the Windsor border, this is like horrible, and like hangs up on me. I'm like, whoa. But a week later, when the police were there in Ottawa, they wanted to see that I was okay. Like, they didn't care about bodily autonomy or anything like that. They just wanted to make sure I wasn't getting arrested. But someone sent them my live stream, and they were seeing me talk to all sorts of totally normal people who are just like, hey, I got, hey, I came from Poland. Hey, I lost my job. Hey, I came from a communist country and I don't like this. Hey, I'm like a hippie from BC and I drove all the way here. They saw all these stories and they're like, oh my God, CTV is fake news. Like they realized it all at once. But the reason I brought that up is, it's the least of our worries was this virus in terms of the damage done. Like obviously there's a certain injectable product that we won't get into, but the propaganda has just destroyed people's minds. It's like the social destruction, the societal destruction, and the mental destruction of the propaganda over the course of the past 2-3 years has been horrible. And a good example is just pointing out the Calgary mayor-elect guy. Like he is a total mess. Like and there's so many people out there who are just, oh my God, I don't know what their mental state is, but it's not good.
Here's what's actually terrifying about what people have been led to believe. If you don't question anything and just look at government provided data, okay? Don't question anything. Let's assume everything was true. Let's assume everything they told us was true. Everything was accurate and correct. The population under 50 years of age experienced under 400 deaths attributed to COVID. However, the number of opioid overdose deaths in Canada doubled. There were an additional 4,000 opioid overdose deaths in Canada during the last couple of years. No, annually. So doubled annually. It's usually 4, and now it's 8,000 a year. And do you know what age group that actually falls within? It's the under 50 age range that's overdosing on opioids. And people look at that, they say, yeah, we times that by 2, and it's we increase the number of deaths with opioids tenfold what we can attribute to COVID, and they're like, yeah, but it was worth it. Greater good, dude.
Yeah,
greater good.
And I noticed this when I was running in 2019 in the election, like when everyone was going off about climate change and how just kind of dumb the kind of logic was. I thought, okay, so this isn't really necessarily even about left or right politics, policy this, policy that. This is just people getting dumber. You know, like if nothing's not done about this current situation of this country and its trajectory, people are just going to get super, super dumb. And with obviously the virus over the past 3 years, like, you know, you're mentioning all these numbers, you're mentioning all these stats. These stats aren't a mystery. They aren't hidden. They aren't like, you know, they're secret numbers. They're there. Are all these professionals, all these experts know this, but instead they're like, let's just tell them a very specific few set of numbers and a very specific few set of words, safety and effective lockdown, or else you're going to, you know, die, whatever. Let's just pump the fear and carry on and say that we're like, we know best.
You know what I think it is, Greg? You know what I think it is?
What's that?
You know how much people are motivated to be victims nowadays, right?
Sure, yeah. Yeah.
Everybody wants to be a victim. Everybody also is equally as motivated to be an easy hero.
Mm-hmm.
So you can be a hero
virtuous.
By going the government line.
You want to be virtuous.
Be a hero, dude.
Yeah.
You can. I'm vaxxed 5 times, guys, for you.
Yeah.
Right? I wear my mask, not just for me. I wear it for you.
I hate that. I snapped. I was doing a stupid TikTok live debating somebody, and they're like, I did my part. I stepped up, and I'm like, you didn't do anything. You sat there and got something stuck in your arm. What do you mean you did your part? You just fucking sat there. You don't have to do anything to do that.
Heroes used to sacrifice their lives. These people sit there and say, yes, government, we will do this.
Yeah,
you didn't do. I'm a hero. It's like the Ralph Wiggum version of being a hero, right? My cat's breath smells like cat food, Greg, so I'm a hero now.
I've never heard that. That's funny. I got safe and effective. I got Pfizer. That's
Government
funny.
told me.
Oh, man.
Right?
That's hilarious. I haven't heard that before. That's a great... Has that meme been made before? Somebody watching, make that meme. That's a hot meme. That's a good meme.
Yeah, they should, man. That would be a real good meme. Okay, you ready to go to number 4?
Let's do it.
Hang on, I got to bring in the animation here.
Number 4.
Just wait, it's got to be... Dude, I'm missing something here. Just wait.
Number 4.
I honestly picked the worst animations. So number 4. You want me to go first?
Yes, sir.
All right. Actually, I was debating this one because I'm like, this is a pretty big one for me. Study reveals that unvaccinated people cause more car crashes than vaccinated people. That's a batshit crazy thing that came out of... That was an Ontario study that actually determined that if you're unvaccinated, you're far more dangerous on the road than a vaccinated person. So to me, that's when we talk about propaganda. Now they're trying to make a correlation between, driving under the influence and not being vaccinated. And it's just like, that's insane to me, man. And at the end of the study, it even said, this might motivate people to get vaccinated if they think they're more likely to crash their car. So, yeah, that's my number 4 is if you're unvaccinated, you're more likely to be in a car accident than a vaccinated person.
Crazy, crazy town, right? And of course, the spooky thing about that, which is like, are you trying to charge unjabbed people more for car insurance? Because that's what it sounds like.
It could happen. Like, dude, there's nothing off the table here. Like, as soon as you say getting a vaccination makes you less likely to have a car accident, you could charge them more for insurance, right? You could convince that, like you can make it be like, you're not allowed to drive a car. Like, let's do like the equivalent of a vaccination breathalyzer. Oh, you're not vaccinated? You can't drive this car, dude, because you might crash it, right?
And how is it any different? It's you know what it is? It's like it's dehumanizing the group with more steps in a way, because it's like Trudeau's like, hey, do we tolerate these people? They're misogynist, racist, all of these things. And it's like, wow, that's wild that you said that. But now the insurance companies, they did a study and it's like, yeah, they're not like bad people, but they're bad drivers, right? They're bad drivers.
Not only are you going to kill my grandma, but now you might kill me and my fucking kids when we're driving down the highway too, right?
It's insane. It's insane. And the thing is, I tried to look into the methodology of it. And I think the theory is like, because when it comes to accidents, it was like 25% of the accidents are unjabbed people, which means that, the majority is jabbed, but the majority of people are jabbed, right? And then they take the percentage of 16% of people are unjabbed. And then if you compare the 16% to the 25%, like it extrapolates. So technically you're slightly more, whatever it is. The thing that bothers me about all this is back to the whole numbers thing. These people have all the numbers. They got all the numbers. Okay.
Well, here's how I look at it. It's actually like, depending on the study you choose to do, you're going to end up with a result, right? You will, no matter what study you do. Like if you want to compare two things on a timeline, you will end up with a result. So you can look at hurricanes that occur in the United States and Southern fried chicken consumption. And you could actually end that study and say, hey, turns out that the more hurricane activity there is, the more people consume Southern fried chicken. It's like, there's no connection between those two things, man. It's like, that just happened. That there no hurricanes are driving people towards eating more chicken.
Those dots aren't connected. I don't know why you're trying to connect those dots, but
if you measure them over the same period of time, you might that's the only connection is they all occurred in a similar time frame.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, for me, the crashing cars and not being vaccinated, that's like measuring how many times you go to the bathroom a day and how many times people fucking go to Walmart. Like there's no logical comparison there. Right.
Yeah. The two dots that aren't meant to be connected, although there might be something there with the Walmart thing when you think about it. But they
did say that if you're so reckless, they did say that you can actually extrapolate your recklessness for not getting vaccinated into how you drive. They said that.
It's silly. And back to what we said earlier, and actually we said this before we turned on the cameras, but it's fascinating what the media will and will not talk about. And they have all the numbers, like we said. And as you were talking about overdoses, why isn't there a study about how lockdowns influence people's depression and maybe wanting to do more drugs? How about we do, a life insurance policy study on people who did get the jab and if they're having heart issues more often, if they're having, other, incidents of all sorts of different health issues. Can we see the studies on that? I would love to see those numbers. But
there's no studies on that, but they came out today or 3 days ago. They said, turns out artificial sweeteners are causing random or sudden adult death syndrome. And it's like, what? Like, guys, this is
everything. I haven't had the time to collect all of them, but there's collages of cold weather, hot weather causes heart attacks, stress causes heart attacks, video games cause heart attacks. Everything causes heart attacks, you guys. Turns out everything causes heart attacks. That one's a doozy.
The ultimate aim is, if they can break down every logical connection you make to any other thing and create chaos in everybody's mind, that allows them to jump in and influence the things they want to influence. And I know people say it's who's they?
Mm-hmm.
Well, obviously the government and anybody who's subverting the West, obviously.
Yeah.
But if they can actually break every logical connection that exists with all of the logical things that happen in society. So it's too hot, sudden adult death syndrome. It's too cold, sudden adult death syndrome. Too much sugar, sudden adult death syndrome. It's like, it's like they've taken every bit of consequence that could apply to them and they've distributed it amongst human activity and chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's right? Can you not afford to pay rent? You should get medical assistance in dying. Can you, are you feeling depressed? You should get medical assistance in dying. Did you scrape your knee? You should get medical assistance in dying. It's, that's the solution to everything all of a sudden. Oh my God.
Did your coffee taste like shit this morning? You should kill yourself.
Yeah. You should end it.
You should let the government kill yourself. Right.
Mm. Yeah.
Anyways, that was my number 4.
No, that was good. All right, my number 4 is it's another convoy one, but it's another batshit crazy thing that happened this year, and that was a leader of a democratic country, Justin Trudeau, not talking to the protesters who were there for 3 weeks and instead freezing bank accounts and invoking the War Measures Act. What the fuck? What the fuck? I couldn't believe this. I couldn't believe this. He pretends to have COVID. He's hiding away. He's calling us names still. It's and then he just had his media lying for him all week and just continuing to double down, triple down, quadruple down. It was just like it had gone past the pale and it just kept going further and further and further. And it's I mean, I don't know. Like, to this day, like, I feel like there's not enough urgency to what has happened in this country and what happened during the convoy. And
dude,
and of
this
course,
is Soviet level shit. Like,
pretty well.
Like honestly,
Pretty
the
well.
level of not ignorance, but the level of manipulation of the facts.
Yeah.
Like, people don't really, but it's just like honestly, when you frame it up, it's like, oh, you have a whole city full of people who are protesting. Yeah, we do. You have people who are pissed off about, losing their life. Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
You have people who might lose their jobs. Yeah, we do. Did you talk to them? Well, no, of course we didn't.
Of course not. These people are disgusting. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure, like, rule number 1 when you have a problem is you talk about it. Pretty sure, like,
pretty basic.
The only reason you don't is if you're trying to do something different than solve the problem, right?
Yeah. And I don't know, call me crazy, but now that not most mandates, but a lot of mandates have, like, gone away, it's like, whoa, we were right. You're crazy for not talking to us. Like, what the hell? Like, are we going to act? And then, like, and once again, no one's like, we're still not talking about it. We're still not talking about it. It's insane.
Not only that, but there was no legitimate reason to not talk presented.
No, there really wasn't.
It'd be different if it was like we couldn't talk for these reasons. It'd be different if there was, like, logically we couldn't because of the XYZ. They're just like, we just didn't.
Yeah.
We just didn't.
And not only that, too, like the election in 2021 leading up to that, that quick little election that he snuck in, there was a debate on.
Everybody forgot that happened too, by the way.
Yeah. No one remembers that election at all, right?
There was an election.
I thought that was a dream.
I was too busy trying to survive.
Yeah, I thought that was a dream. I didn't know that happened. But during that election, there was a debate with Aaron O'Toole was there, and I wish I remember. Like, it was probably like a debate on diversity and climate and electric vehicle. There was not even a debate about mandates of like vaccine passports, and there was not even a debate item on that. The discussion was not even had. It was the creepiest thing to watch, where it's just like, we're not going to talk about this. We're not going to talk about this brand new policy being pushed everywhere across the country, where you can't even go to McDick's. You can't even go to Timmy's without having this freaking. Oh my God.
This is what, and honestly, like, I've always been a reasonable CPC supporter, and everybody attacks me for splitting the vote. But it's like, how can you stand behind a group of people who didn't say shit when you were losing everything, who didn't say shit when every constitutional right and freedom you're entitled to was being, like, it's just like, how can you ignore that, right? Like, that's what's crazy to me.
And back then and still now, they're always like, well, the money, the money. And it's like, no, stop talking about money, guys. Like, stop with the money stuff. Like, there's way more important things. Sure, yeah, they're spending all sorts of money. Yeah, we get it. But what about that piece of paper? What's that called again? The charter, charter of right. Do we care about that? Yeah.
Inside the Canadian
it's just the green paper.
We have a constitution, right?
You don't care about the money paper.
There's processes for all the stuff they did that they didn't follow, right?
Yeah, unbelievable,
dude. It's. I'll tell you one thing I learned through this whole exercise was the only politician worth any trust, for the most part, is one who was booted from the party. Because they took a stand. Like, honestly, you look at the guys who did, who stood for the right things. The rest of them protected their jobs. And I'll tell you, the reason why we're in the situation we're in, though, is because people are electing prime ministers and they're less focused on their local representation. They've allowed the party to rot from the bottom up because they want a specific prime minister so bad that they let their representative get away with murder. And what happens is when you end up in a situation where the leader of the party is trying to strong arm everybody,
Mhm.
everybody caves because every community elected somebody weak who's going to cave, right?
Yeah, no, these two big parties are just like disgusting, man. Like you said, like they're rotten from the inside out, and like they've just kind of taken on a life of their own, and they're about the party. They're not about Canadians at all. You know,
Well,
like
dude,
it's
show
the
me, show
jig's
me a
up.
matter, show me a matter that has drifted from the core values that Western civilization is based upon. Show me something that has drifted from there that either party has tried to bring back to true north. Neither. Conservatives
It's
are
we've
trying
just
to. Conservatives are just letting it happen slower.
That's it. Exactly. Yeah, it's like,
Like honestly, I can
yeah.
honestly say, listen, this is going to sound really crazy. I have more trust for the Liberal Party because they're telling us what they're doing. The Conservatives are moving in that direction and telling us something different, right?
In a way, the lies that the Conservative Party is telling are more nefarious lies. It's more dishonest. Like at least Trudeau tells me he thinks I'm a piece. Like at least
Well,
he's
dude,
like
we know
telling
they're
me,
trying to
hey,
fuck us.
yeah.
We
They're
know.
pretty open about it. But the Conservatives are like, yeah, we're gonna fight the very hardest that we can. It's like, are you Four Eyes? Like, are you?
Dude.
I can't believe I used Four Eyes. That's funny.
And honestly though, it's like at least you know who your enemy is with the Liberals.
Yeah. Yep.
But you look at Aaron O'Toole; he went back on every. He was still moving towards disarmament of Canadians.
Yeah. I want to ask you.
And this is where it comes down to. It's like the problem is not with the political system. The problem is that the political system has managed to remove consequence from the equation. That's the
Okay.
problem.
That's
The
very
political system would function perfectly if there was adequate consequence on the people involved within it. Everybody talks to me. They're like, "Do you think we should be a republic?" Or no, I think there should be consequence involved to the people making the decisions to completely fuck our country over. That's it.
Yeah, and I think you're right, and I think that when I joined politics, I was a professional in Toronto, and I was seeing all these bright, intelligent people working for corporations. That they're smart, slick professionals who care about what they're doing. And then I joined politics, and I'm like, how come none of those people made it in here? All these are just like sleazebags, opportunists, like egotistical lawyers, and all sorts of like scummy weasels. How come no hardworking, intelligent, caring people made it into Canadian politics? But the hope is that if we can bridge that gap, then we can actually fix this country. If we can actually get enough caring, intelligent people into the political realm, then we can actually turn this place around.
I disagree 100%.
You disagree?
100%.
Oh, no.
Here's where I disagree.
Tell me.
I think the people within politics are fine. The populace is asleep, and they hold nobody accountable. If your local federal representative felt the pressure, they would move in the right direction.
Okay.
That's why this system sucks good people in and makes them bad. It's because the human race is based upon every single thing we've turned into is based upon consequence. Everything. So if you can take the exact same group of people in power now and change the populace so that the populace applies an adequate amount of consequence to the actions of the elected and get a totally different result. You can take people from the populace and put them within the elected, and they'll start good. You'll get maybe one term out of them where they're good. They'll drift because there's no consequence, right?
Okay. That's no, you make a great point, because the apathy in this country is definitely the problem.
Because the government's convinced us that you need to be polite or else you're an extremist.
Yep.
They've convinced us you can't say firearms are necessary to fight a tyrannical. How dare you say that? How dare you say you should have firearms to fight tyranny? You're extreme. Wow, guys.
Mm-hmm.
All the while, they are taking your firearms from you at the end of a fucking barrel.
What do you say? Yeah, only we are allowed to have guns, Rob. Come on. But what do you say? What do
Life,
you?
liberty, security of the person. Why does Justin Trudeau have firearms surrounding him everywhere he goes? For his constitutional right to security of the person, Greg.
He's also very unpopular, and a lot of people really don't like him. But
I don't want to go there. But
yeah, right.
Certain things could happen in the world, and I don't care about them. Let's just put it that way, right?
What do you say to somebody, like, I don't know if anyone said this to you, but this is the sort of like the really I don't know too much on the topic, so I don't know if I should speak to them, but is it the CFFR, the Rifle Association? So like there isn't their weak talking point. They're like, no, Second Amendment isn't a thing. No, we don't talk about that. No, it's all about sport shooting, guys. Like that's all the only thing. It's just sport shooting. That's all we do.
The CCFR, okay? Listen, great. We have organizations that do something. They're part of the equation to take your firearms away. Because every step of the way, both of these organizations will say, you should follow the law, and we will fight it in court. But guess what? As soon as the government changes the law, you're against. You get what I'm saying? It's like, follow the law, guys. Okay, now your firearms are illegal. We're following the law. Yeah, we'll fight it in court.
Yep.
Oh, then we lost.
Yeah. Just make sure our lawyers keep getting paid. And we'll fight for you.
We need a whole new gun lobby called the Gun Lobby of Nope.
Of
Fucking
nope?
Nope. Not happening. Fuck off. Not happening, dude. You think, it was funny. The NFA came out with something recently, and it was a video. And they said, and dude, I'm not a shit talker. Like, if they're fighting, great. Their video, the president of the NFA said, the fight has just begun. And I'm like, motherfuckers, you've been around since 1978. What do you mean the fight has just begun? Like, seriously.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Every step of the way, if you follow a gun lobby, they will say, follow the law. And my attitude is, don't. Say no.
Right.
Nope.
So
You're not taking my shit. I'm not entering a registry with, like, if 2 million gun owners in Canada fucking said nope, what do you think it happened, Greg?
They would go, well, you have to. And then you guys would go,
but again,
nope.
Consequence, right? They
Right.
all try to fight it via proxy. Through the gun lobby, through politicians. Oh, we're influencing. No, that's not how it works.
Right. So you have a similar philosophy of like the peaceful non-compliance with COVID restrictions, basically, where it's just like, just say no. Say no.
Just fucking no. We're not doing it, man. Dude, the most powerful word in the English language is nope.
Nope. That's right.
10,000 people say nope. The one person trying to make them say yes is like, oh, I guess it's no then. Like, I guess it's no now. I guess I'm not going to make this happen now, all right?
So we're going to number 3 in a sec, right? But before, I kind of want to ask you about Alberta independence and maybe Danielle Smith. I know that's kind of a big topic, but I don't know if you want to speak to that. I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on that.
Oh, dude, I can give you some thoughts on that. So I am really liking Danielle Smith, and I know some people have been like, oh, she backed down. Dude, she's saying more than any politician in Canada when it comes to standing up for her province. It's like, and people say, well, I'll believe it when those when those words turn into action. It's like, the words are already action. Nobody else is saying this shit. It's like, let's just be okay with that for now.
Yeah.
Like I'm an idealist. I want the best of everything all the time. But in this situation, I'm like, this is good. Dude, she is pushing back, and she's saying, she's given the federal government the middle finger. It's like, good. That's what we want. Alberta independence, for me, is we should move towards it. We should wield it as a sword while trying to get the best deal possible for Alberta, but end up in a state where, if it happens, it's because the feds gave us no choice. It's not the situation where it's like we should just separate. No. We should try everything in our power to get the best deal and work with the feds and get everything we need. in this situation. But at the end of the day, if they can't meet our terms, well, you gave us no choice, guys. I don't think we should move right to separation, but it should be, how do you negotiate without that kind of, how could you ever punch through the target, Greg? How could you ever get a positive result for Alberta unless you're punching through the target there and you're willing to go to that extent, right?
I think that's a great analogy for politics in general, and I don't think conservatives understand that, because like you said, like punching through the target is essentially exaggerating your point or exaggerating your stance to not necessarily get to that exaggeration, but get to like a middle point from like what you were talking about, right? And if you look at our opponents, if
Greg, if I say every firearms law and legislation should be repealed, I know it's not going to happen, right. But if that's my aim and I get half of that, now we're getting back.
There you go. I want to address a comment from Clyde Do Something in chat. He says, and this is regarding the gun lobbies. In all fairness, the gun lobby groups are saying that these gun laws are unconstitutional. The only way to challenge that is if someone breaks the new laws first, unfortunately.
So break the new laws first. Right? Like honestly, so my imaginary gun lobby of Nope, Greg, is where every member signs a document that declares you'll have to bring acetylene torches into my house to take my shit.
That's going to be written in.
Right? Like that's my imaginary gun lobby, where it's like push them to that point. They'll get 5 houses in before it's so uncomfortable that they stop. Right? That's the power of the populace, right?
Right. Okay.
This is my thought.
All right, should we go on to number 3?
Let's go to number 3. Just wait. Let me pull up the animation here.
Get the high-tech animation.
Oh, that one was perfect.
Number 3.
Number 3. Okay, number 3 for me. In Alberta, we had an unvaccinated lady who required a life-saving organ transplant, refused her organ transplant because she was unvaccinated.
Oh, boy.
How fucking crazy is that? You pay into something your whole life. 40+% of your income goes towards taxes. A huge amount of that is towards healthcare. You're in a situation where your life is severely compromised. You need an organ transplant. And because you didn't take a government-mandated medical treatment, which under Section 7, life, liberty, security of the person, if you actually go into Charterpedia and read up on it, case law dictates the government cannot force medical treatment because you are aligned with your constitutional rights and freedoms. You get refused an organ transplant. That's fucked up.
What province was this?
Alberta. Actually, Danielle Smith came out recently. I haven't dug into it too far, but she was opposing it and she was fighting back against it.
Good.
Like, good stuff, man.
And that's, yeah, I mean, why aren't more people just completely disgusted by this? Like, you would think that the apathetic Canadians would like say something about this, but I guess they've been so programmed to be like, well, they're bad people and they don't deserve health care anymore. And it's like, well, how can it, like, you know, health and safety, but now how un-Canadian is that to say they don't deserve health care? You know, it's like they've completely corrupted the so-called good Canadians with all this, like, I don't know how to describe it, but I
don't understand why that wouldn't be the head of the spear. Like, why wouldn't that even be the breaking point for a huge movement, right? I don't get it. But again, it speaks to how asleep the populace is and how little consequence there is for government action.
Yeah, right? and on that note, I think there was a lot of, it was like red pill seizing during like lockdown for 3 years, and I think a lot of people got red pilled for the very first time, and I think everybody had their kind of own breaking point. And I think the reason the convoy was so successful, it was a beacon of, oh, those are my people. Those are my people. This is what I'm going to associate myself with. Like, this is it. And that's why so many different people from across the country, different walks of life. Like the whole thing that it was a far right protest, I do not even buy into. Like there were so many people who I interviewed who it's like, you're definitely not right wing at all.
Dude,
you know?
I did a presentation in town here to the Muslim community regarding the Alberta Prosperity Project.
What's that project? What's that?
The Alberta Prosperity Project. It's a movement that is towards gearing Alberta up to be prepared to separate.
Okay.
If it comes down to, like, that's the whole movement, is influencing the government so that Alberta gets the best deal. So our first engagement was with the local Muslim community. And these women were like, we were at the convoy. These Muslim women, we were at the convoy. And I think the only negative I would say is like, they were like, yeah, we didn't really get the reception that, that felt respectful, but they were like, we were there. Like we were there supporting all of this shit. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever, man, where it's like, that just goes to show how much diversity there was in supporting the convoy and fighting for rights and freedoms. And actually to sit down and talk to this community was really cool. You would be absolutely shocked at how aligned with virtually every view guys like you and I hold when it comes to rights, freedoms, the whole 9 yards that this community holds, right? And it's just a great example of the lack of understanding of our diverse communities within Canada, in my opinion, right?
Yeah, it's it was all of the things that the Trudeau government and CBC loves to preach about. It was the actual real version of that. It was the actual unity, it was the actual love, it was the actual inclusion, it was the actual looking out for one another. It was the actual like Canadian spirit that they try to sell and they've commodified through CBC. It was the real thing. It was the real thing for real. And someone might say, oh, but it was majority white, and it's like, well, Canada is majority white, so like it reflects the thing in Canada,
man. Like, of course it was, of course, right?
And it was a natural reflection of the diversity that we have in the country. So yeah, and that's why I was so like happy to be there, document, right? Because, well, not even happy to be there, but more just like I have to do this because no one else is documenting this. Like, well, they're not no one, but like, very few, no actual news organizations, right?
The true side of it, right?
Yeah. Which was so disappointing. Should I get into my number 3?
Yeah, let's do it.
Now, this is a big, hairy topic, but I feel like one of the craziest things in 2022 has been this ongoing war in Ukraine. With Russia, and it's just the way that the media has covered this that I find absolutely insane. It's so completely one-sided. It promotes so much ignorance, and we have, fascinatingly, all of these left-wing people who are like foaming at the mouth to like send more weapons to Ukraine, like. No negotiations, like, no, send more weapons, no negotiations, send more weapons. And they're just foaming at the mouth. Or like, they're so pro-war. Like I saw a clip recently of someone confronting Jagmeet Singh. And it's like, oh, do you think like we should support negotiations? And like, he like deflected the question of like, no, well, we need to keep supporting Ukraine. And that's very important. He's like, yeah, but it's like, do you support NATO? Like, what's up with that? And, yeah, it's if I'm not mistaken, it's across the board. Like everyone in the House of Commons, right? Like even Pierre Poilievre, Big Peepee, is like, well, we got to support Ukraine, and it's just like creepy. It's just super creepy and insane how this is kind of. I don't know. It's like it's very unsettling, right? Because it's a bloody, awful war that's just ongoing. It feels like there could be ways out of it, but people are just like, no, we gotta keep sending more weapons, and we can't secede to Putin. Like, it's not gonna happen.
Well, Greg, you got to think, like, what purpose does extending this conflict serve? Like, more people die. That's it. Like it's almost like when you look at a natural habitat and human beings interfere with it. What does that result in? And for me, the Russia-Ukraine scenario that's like a natural habitat. And the more it's funded and the more it's supported, the more suffering and the further we get away from some kind of resolution here. That's how I view it. And it's just like, when I see these politicians, and don't get me wrong, like suffering is bad on all sides. I don't the people of Ukraine who are suffering, that's terrible. But I
Hmm.
think there needs to be a separation between the suffering of the people who are under attack and the fact that the West, in many ways, is sustaining that suffering. Like they're actually like funding it and keeping it going
Hmm.
when they should have a long time ago gotten to a situation where there's a negotiation or there's some resolution occurring there, right? And it's
Yes.
like you get the fingers of the West in here, and it's a great example of what happens in places like Iraq and everything. And it's like it just makes the hurt longer. It just makes people suffer more. Where it's just let it play out the way it's supposed to play out, because ultimately, unless you're willing to get into a massive escalation here, the end result is going to be quite similar than if you just let it play out, right?
Absolutely. And I don't know if I can share my screen here, but this uh like the crazy cherry on top of like the whole conflict is just the weird theater around it. Like the theater around it is so creepy. Like Sean Penn is giving Zelensky a an Academy Award, right?
Dude, this
He's like,
Zelensky
hey,
shit
hey,
drives me crazy.
take my Academy Award, bro. And it's like, are you mocking us? You know, it's like what is this? Like
Yeah.
like or are people so dumb that they think that like Sean Penn giving him this little like gold statue and figurine is like actually moral support or something like that? Like it's either you're dumb or you're stupid. You know what I mean? Like I
Well,
don't understand.
the thing is though, these people don't operate on convincing guys like us and our followers that what they're doing makes sense. That's not the reason they're doing it. They need to, when they calculate their actions, they're trying to appeal to the masses.
Mm,
So they're going to have a bunch of people who know exactly what the fuck is going on here, calling it out. This is why, when it seems stupid, they still behave this way, is
mm,
because they're still appealing to a massive amount of people when they do it. It's all strategic. So when they do this, when they virtue signal this way, when they do this, they're actually looking at it in a sense of 10% of the population is awake and understands how ridiculous this is, but there's 30% who doesn't. So
mm.
if we keep talking this way, that 30% keeps believing us, right?
Yeah,
And that's where the trenches are, where you and I are. And we're actually trying to grow the 10% that we interact with towards the 30% who are
definitely,
buying into this shit, right?
definitely. I
Does
wonder.
that make sense? Like, was that a good?
No, that
Yeah.
does make sense because it's true. Like we're dealing. It's politics is a game of numbers, and
Yeah.
they imagine the data they have on how many people are
Oh,
compliant with like restrictions and how many people support
especially with social
Ukraine.
media. Like,
Yeah, the data they
social
have
media
is
is in their
probably
pocket.
insane.
Imagine the data,
I,
dude. We don't even know, like, on the surface, how much data there is going towards leftist politicians in
mhm,
regards to social media within Canada.
yeah,
Like, these guys know. When I see Trudeau still competitive, it's like I know he can make three moves and gain 5% in the polls. I know he can.
yeah.
He can do three things and be like, everybody's like, oh, it's
Just
that analogy
he's just got
of,
to flip the hair, and then there he
you,
went,
you
went
ever
up two
watch you
percentage
ever watch the
points.
movie
Flips the
Major
hair.
Pain, Greg?
I don't think
The
so.
Wayans brothers, Major. Oh, you have to. So it's hilarious. The Wayans brothers are some of my favorite comedians ever. They made a movie called Major Pain, and Major Pain is this badass military dude, and he just wrecks shit. And his go to move is, oh, you're in pain? Let me give you something to take your mind off that pain. So he's on the battlefield. There's a dude with his legs destroyed. And he's like, oh, you're in so much pain. And the guy's like, yeah, yeah, I am. And he goes, let me give you something to take your mind off that pain. The guy goes, okay. And he grabs his hand and he breaks all his fingers. And it's like, well, now you're not thinking about your legs, dude. Like,
Yeah.
that's the game we're in right now. Is you get a massive amount of the populace who is just happy being in less pain, or having
Uh,
something distract them from the pain. that they're currently in, right?
It's awful to think about. I want to read a few comments here. Republic of Canada said, I support Ukraine 1,000%.
I don't not support them. Like,
no, 1,000%.
Well, why 1,000? Like, why didn't they say 10,000 or 1,000,000 or
1,000,000%? Yeah, that's good. That's a good point.
What the fuck is their problem?
Republic of Canada, why isn't it 1,000,000%? Why is it only 1,000%?
Your virtue signal of 1,000% is inadequate. That's
not enough.
Weak on my terms.
And then, of course, Clyde Do Something said, you are either with us or with the terrorists, which is what Bush said in 2001. And in Ukraine 2022, you are either with us or with Putin. It's the same vibe. Yeah, I would agree with that. And then, of course, what? Well, no, but
with us or with Putin.
How it's like an ultimatum, right? Like there is no nuance allowed. No nuance allowed. Either you're with us or you're
the narrative, man. Yep. You're not allowed to.
And then, of course, Fan Dabby said,
dude, actually, honestly, what these people are saying is the same as if your profile picture isn't "I support Ukraine," you're a bad person. That's what these people that you're reading the comments of have said to us here.
And it's funny too, because that was definitely the case in the first few months of the Ukraine-Russia conflict, and now people are like, normies are like over it. They're like, oh yeah, is that still happening? Oh, it's like you called me the worst person ever when I didn't have a Ukraine flag in my bio, and now you're acting like you don't even care. But
I wonder how many of these people who are making these comments support the disarmament of Canadians, but also support Ukraine.
Well, they were kidding. The person who said they supported 1,000% were definitely kidding. I think they were saying that ironically, right? I think so. I think so. But
I take back everything I said about them.
Yeah, no, they're great people. Fan Dabby said 700 homeless in Halifax. But yeah, let's support Ukraine. Support them, not Ukraine, right?
Dude, there was a meme that I saw today, and it was like, I'm doing my taxes right now. I'm going to put Zelensky in as a dependent.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
All right, should we go on? What are we on now? Are we on number 3, number 4? Where are we at? I think we're on number 4.
Dude, we're on number 2.
Oh, sorry, number 2. Right, number 2. Yeah, we're in the top 2.
Wait, I gotta pull up the. Hang on.
Number 2.
Number 2. Do we tolerate these people? The quote from Trudeau. Dude, yeah. That was so reflective of dictators, authoritarians in the past who have committed terrible atrocities against their people. And that's not an exaggeration. He literally rhymed off, compared people who don't support forced. And what I love is with this conversation is the semantics around you're not being forced. This is a decision. You're making a choice. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Do we tolerate these people, the people who don't want to, and I will say it directly, have a government-forced medical treatment? If your livelihood is at stake, if your freedom to access services within society, if the threat is your constitutional rights and freedoms will be violated if you don't, you're not being asked to do anything. You're being forced.
Mm-hmm.
That's what force looks like. And his question of, do we tolerate these racists and misogynists? I don't know where the fuck misogyny came into the picture here, by the way.
Where did any of it come from? It's ridiculous.
Dude, it's like you're just beating me up more now. It's like I'm not
I think
do we tolerate these racists, misogynists, and puppy kickers?
Mm-hmm. I think
as well have said that.
It's one of those things where it's like peanut butter and jelly. Racist and misogynist, and you kind of got to put racist and misogynist together. They just go together. Like when you're accusing someone of racism, you accuse them of misogyny. It's all the same. It's all the same.
Of accusing me of hating spaghetti. Like it's like,
yeah.
Why did you say like? There's no. That's not a thing. Like,
no, but you're so right. There's so many. I don't understand how these people operate. Where they'll say, "Well, I just got it to travel." And it's your choice, and it's like, what? Like, how does this work in your brain? It just doesn't make any sense to me. And you're right. It really was scary to see him saying this. And it wasn't just that. During his campaign in 2021, you won't get on a plane or a train next to the vaccinated people.
I was just about to say the exact same thing to you.
What?
You can't get on a train or blah, blah. It's like, what?
And
dude, and people are cheering and begging for him to behave this way.
that's the scary part, right? That's the scary part.
Dude.
You know, like we're supposed to be this free, loving, you know, Trudeau lovers and unity. And then he starts to act like an authoritarian and they're all like, yeah, like worshiping like a big red flag or something. It's like, what happened? Oh my God. I know lockdown made people restless, but this is a little much. Like,
dude, I'm to the point in my life where it's like, you know when people are like, I don't agree with what you say, but I'll defend your right to say it.
Sure.
I'm like, stop saying that. Stop. Because the people you're saying that to, they will defend the government's right to fucking murder you every day of the week. So we need to come up with a better way to approach that than just supporting these people who say this crazy shit. Because these are the people who are feeding the energy that results in statements like that. It's like, guys, we need to come up with something better here. Right?
Yeah, these it's crazy to see how many people kind of just went along with it, didn't question it, didn't see the problem with it. Like they were kind of on board with just, it's your choice. You can just be a piece of shit who's, do we even tolerate you? I made a TikTok recently where I just reposted this kid at the trucker convoy who, without even being prompted, I said, hey, do you have a message for the country of Canada? He said, don't listen to Justin Trudeau. And it was like, oh my God, like it was such a surprise. And it went a little viral on TikTok. And one of the responses in particular was so disturbing, where this guy is like, yeah, kids are cute. You know what's not cute? How like this kid's going to be part of a minority now, the fringe minority, and he's going to be like oppressed by people like me or something. Like he was like a grown man saying this, basically saying he's going to be part of this minority who's going to be, ostracized now. And it's like, wow, dude. Like what happened to the unity? What happened to the loving, the acceptance? Like it's funny how they still believe all that, but when it comes to the vaccine, it's like, nope, absolutely not. That's out the window.
Things lately. Dude, one of my favorite things I'm seeing lately is like, the whole term groomer. Like we're like, you're sexually grooming fucking kids. Like,
right.
You're literally doing that. Like there's no denying it. There's no arguing that point. They're doing that to kids. But what the groomers are now doing is they're looking at kids who have like Christian values and they're like, you're grooming those kids to be that way.
Yeah,
they're trying to flip it,
yeah.
And I'm like, wow. But my attitude is keep pushing that, because the more they push that, trying to instill good values in a kid is the equivalent of sexually grooming a kid. The more it like absolutely works in our favor every day of the week, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that is something to look out for, is to really let these people talk. Let them keep talking. Like they are. Yeah, exactly.
Let them talk, man. Let them say every crazy thing that's in their mind and make them comfortable doing it, right?
So I'm going to get into my number 2, which is a perfect segue. And, you said Trudeau saying, your number 2 is Trudeau saying, how do we tolerate these people? They're racist, misogynist. My number 2 is Trudeau lying under oath and saying that he did not say these things. No, I did not say that. I said that maybe sometimes they are.
This is the same as your number 5. You just blew my number 2 out of the water.
No, well, it was a great.
I don't even want to talk to you again. I don't like this.
It was a great. What do you mean? It was a perfect pairing. But this is, it's insane that this happened. But obviously, if you're people like us, you're not at all surprised that he lied under oath. But I think the reason it's totally insane is that this trial was a very public trial. Everybody saw it. And I really do feel like it's a new low, like they showed their authoritarian face at the convoy. They froze bank accounts. They beat people up because they didn't want to talk to us. And now they're doing their investigation trial and they're lying under oath. And we know they're lying under oath. They're kind of making a massive mockery of the justice system in a sense. You know, they're like, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, I'll swear in the Bible. Yeah, okay, okay, Bill Blair, like okay, Trudeau,
Yeah.
and it's just like lying to the entire country. Wow.
Dude, when I watched that, I'll tell you, the thought that went through my head is that was actually damaging to us because he was so adverse to reality in every single thing he said
Mhm.
when he was on the stand that it was like he actually and don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting here supporting him in any way. But when you look at the level in which he's executing his plan and supporting his plan, when you think about the art of war, like in all of these types of things, it's like, holy shit. Like he actually damaged, like he lied under oath, but his ignorance of his oath was what actually netted them points in that situation, which is like, that's what we're up against, dude. There's no, and that's why I said, we need to abandon this, I'll defend your right to say it shit, because
Mm.
like this is the game they're playing. They will go under oath and they will violate every single barrier that we put in front of this type of thing to happen. Trudeau will go under oath and lie through his teeth to everybody because he knows that's the media that's going to hit the people and draw the votes towards him, right?
Yeah, it is very disturbing that sorry, I lost my thought there. Wait.
Dude, I lose my thoughts 50 times a day. Don't feel bad about that.
Shoot, what was I thinking there?
We'll
But
just come up with a new thought. That's what I do when it's
yeah. But he he lied under oath, and so many people it kind of, I feel like the trial, like the Emergencies Act trial, just kind of like polarized everybody further, right? Because because we watched it, we were disgusted, we were horrified, we saw all these bloopers, we saw somebody pretending they couldn't speak English. He explained how he couldn't speak English in English.
The pig roast in the street? I saw this pig roast. Like, do you remember that woman? Dude, that was the most insane shit I ever saw. She was horrified
Right.
at a pig roast. It's like,
Yeah.
the way they made it out is there was conflict. Like AK-4, like, dude, this is like Siberia shit.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, this pig roast. And, oh, dude, I couldn't believe it. Trudeau, but I'm telling you, man, Trudeau hitting the stand hurt us because he was so capable of going against the oath he took that wasn't even a barrier for him.
Right. That's what I was going to say. He, as much as I dislike Trudeau and as much as people might not like him, he is good at what he does. He is very good at what he does. Like he was okay for his first like few years in office, but like after he lost the beard, he got the beard, then lost the beard again. He really turned it up a notch in terms of being a machine, just a speaking machine. I don't know if they like MK Ultra'd his programming or whatever, but he is really good at what he does, unfortunately. And it's his base ate it up. Yeah, like his fans of him saw him at the trial, like, wow, he's so brave and da 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 da. But I mean, really, the silly thing about the trial, in my opinion, was it's just another public conversation where we're not talking about mandates and how they totally weren't justified, and how we're not talking about the many things to do with lockdowns and restrictions, and how, well, there's a lot to talk about, right? There's a lot to actually.
I'm telling you too, dude. Like, there's a lot to be said about, like, Canada is really asleep because how many Canadians think Trudeau is stupid and Liberals are stupid? How many Canadians think that?
Probably like, I don't know, how many votes did the Conservatives get last election? Like 33% of the vote or something.
But even then, the people, like, there are still a number of people who vote Liberal who don't realize they're not, like, they think that they have a good intent, but it's like, no, these are not stupid people. These are highly organized, highly strategic, highly tactical people. And the worst thing Canada ever did was think that Trudeau was stupid. If you were to measure Trudeau's actions in a business sense between what he wanted to accomplish and the metrics that he would need to achieve to accomplish those goals since he came into power, this would be a top
He's crushing
performing business.
Yeah, he's crushing it.
Crushing it, dude. He's crushing it. He's beyond crushing it. He has made more moves in the direction he wants to go than any prime minister before him has ever made. And people will sit down and still say, this guy's fucking stupid, or this guy doesn't know what he's talking. They will look at his gun legislation and be like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? There's nothing wrong with them. They're highly intelligent about what they're doing. They cast the biggest net possible, and then what they end up with is beyond what they hoped for every single time. The worst thing Canada, and myself, I did it early on. The worst thing anybody ever did was think that these guys are stupid and they don't know what they're talking about or doing. Again, look at what they've done. And if you were to reverse engineer the reign of the Liberal Party in Canada since 2015, build a set of metrics to dictate successful performance in everything they planned to achieve and everything they wanted to achieve, they'd be off the fucking charts. Off the charts in performance in every single place that they had an objective to achieve something.
I think that's a really hot take, and I think it should be a more popular perspective, because it speaks to the kind of what's the word, the ugly reality of how politics actually works. And when you consider like how politics actually works, you know, it's true. Trudeau is absolutely crushing it. He's killing it. And he thrives upon, speaking of people's intelligence, he thrives upon the kind of 80%, 20% rule, which I think this comes from like Roger Stone, who's like a popular, political strategist from the States, been around for a long time. But he pretty well said, like, 80% of people are of like medium to low intelligence. And, your political campaign, your political messaging, your image, everything, your branding should all revolve around that people are 80% medium to low intelligence. And if you think about it, oh, he's so dumb. And it's like, well, yeah, there's a reason for that, because he's appealing to the broad masses with like simple language, things that don't make sense, but it's like a little storybook. It's like hey, conservatives bad, and I come in and keep you healthy and safe, and everyone's like, oh my God, he's so good looking, and it works. And us conservatives, especially us conservatives who are paying attention, we tend to be, I don't want to gloat, I don't want to pump everyone's tires, but we seem to be somewhat intelligent. We seem to be like seeking the information. We like to dig into the facts. So we need to realize that, not that we have to dumb ourselves down, but it's kind of like, we need to learn how to play that same game, our version of that game. And yeah.
Greg, it comes back to what I said earlier. It's like the people who say, I don't agree with what you say, but I'll support your right to say it. That's a losing game. This is such a fucking game with these people. This is such a strategic game they're playing that the fact they've convinced us to be polite gets them points. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like every single aspect of human behavior that they've calculated into this game helps them win. They convince us to be polite and not to sound extreme. Well, if they keep us in that bubble, they win. Right?
Yeah, and they have us so cornered. The first time I joined politics, once again, this I forget her name now, but she was a volunteer in my campaign, and she said something that I didn't understand at the time, but now I totally do, which is, the left has us in a chokehold on the ground, and we're trying to give them a hug. They have us totally euchred, totally cornered. And we don't think they do, because they always act polite. They're always acting very nice and polite when they say their things. But
what the same way, but without the strategy, right?
Right. And when they're acting polite, they're saying the most dismissive, dehumanizing, backhanded, passive aggressive things, basically equating you to like a dumb hick, piece of crap, trash. Like you have no empathy, you have no compassion, but they're saying it in a polite voice. So it's nice, right? It's like, no, this is the meanest thing you could say to somebody. This is the absolute meanest thing you could say to somebody, but they're saying it in a nice, polite way. And the conservatives make the mistake of basically saying, we just need to debate them better. We just need to have better talking points. And it's like, no, you need to fight fire with fire. You got to sling some mud.
They need to hit a wall when they pull this shit. They need to be like, we tried it and it didn't work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Hey, wait, before we go on,
yep,
Greg, we've gone a lot longer than I expected, but I'm enjoying this. I have to let my dogs out. You're gonna have to freestyle it for a minute here while I let my dogs out. Okay.
Okay. Can you play the number one first? Because we're gonna get to number one.
Okay. Oh, okay. So
fair enough.
Hang on. Everybody ready for this? You can do your number one, then I'll do mine.
Yeah. We'll reverse it for this one. Number one.
Was that good?
Yeah. I got it.
I like that.
Take the
I'm
dog out
for like 1 minute flat, and then I'm back.
No problem. All right. So, hi, everyone. So, my number one for the craziest thing that happened in 2020, it is going to be James Topp. James Topp marching across the entire country, and the Canadian news media not even telling Canadians about this at all. They did not cover his story. They did not say, hey, there's a veteran marching across the entire country to protest mandates. They didn't even say there was a guy marching across the country. Like, this was not a news item. Anytime it was presented dishonestly. And this is a new low, I think, for the Canadian news media. Like, you know me, I'm not a fan of the Canadian news media ever since 2018, where they have, officially paid off trusted journalists in this country. It's obviously been getting more and more bias and more like propaganda. And that's the whole reason I joined politics, by the way. But in my opinion, this is next to something that Justin Trudeau and the Canadian news media, like, one of the most shameful things that they do is how they disparage, disregard, and dismiss and dehumanize Canadian veterans in general, right? Like, Justin Trudeau told, I forget his last name, Brock, but he was at that town hall with Justin Trudeau. He said, hey, like, why don't you give more back to veterans? And he said to a veteran with one leg, Trudeau said to a veteran, Brock, with one leg, you're asking for more than we're able to give. Absolutely despicable. So disgusting. And this disrespect towards James Topp is the same, but it's just on a national level. It's just on a massive level. Like, this guy had a rucksack on his back. I'm talking about James Topp and how the Canadian news media completely ignored this guy. He had a rucksack on his back, and he marched all the way from Vancouver to Ottawa. He marched all the way to Vancouver for Ottawa. And I feel like I have to repeat it because the news media didn't even fucking talk about it. Okay. And if they did so dishonestly, where they're like, oh, some veteran criticized the vaccine mandate in uniform, and that's against the, like, are you fucking kidding me? It makes me so livid. It makes me, like, the little respect I had for a Canadian journalist, like, goes even lower, like, past, like, to levels I didn't even know were possible. And I don't know. I just really hope that these editors for these newspapers have trouble sleeping at night, because what they have done, especially by not covering the story, I think is the most shameful thing that's happened in Canada in this year, for sure. Because trucker convoy, one thing or another, like, maybe it's like they're playing the game of politics, but, like, you can't even support something like James Topp, who is, like, squeaky clean guy, like, incredible record in the military, like a veteran, and he's doing something that I think connects with, like, a deeper part of Canadian identity with Terry Fox. And it's like, you can't even cover that. You can't even cover that. You can't even be honest about that. And at that point, mandates were also dropping. Like, you could have got behind this guy and maybe kind of did something nice, but you can't even do that. You can't even do that. To me, that is insane, and it's just completely despicable. I don't even have the words for it. Terrible, man.
You know what it demonstrates to me, Greg, when I see that?
Oh,
can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
What it demonstrates to me is, like, when you look at the States, in the States, stuff like that will get traction because there's actually more of an equal balance in the media Like, as much as you see the cat fight in the States and everybody in this ball of like just scrapping and like arms and like everything's
Mm-hmm.
flying everywhere, there's still more of a balance there. In
Mm-hmm.
Canada, the fact that that story was completely squashed in every way, shape, and form tells you that we are literally 80% to 90% liberalized media versus the 10 to 15, 20% media that works in favor of the people, right? Like that was the biggest when I saw that play out and it got no coverage, it was like that was what it indicated to me was how biased every bit of media and of course it is. It's
Mm-hmm.
all funded by the taxpayers, but it was just such an indication of how biased the media is. And that is such like like of course everybody knows it's biased, but I don't think people realize it's so biased that got no coverage. That got less coverage than what? Like how many ridiculous stories came out that were just completely like yawners, right?
I mean, there's probably more coverage of the so-called desecration of the war memorial. Like all the misinformation around the convoy probably got more coverage than that because you can talk to people
There's more
and
coverage of how Roe v. Wade affected Canada
that's very true.
than there was James
Yeah,
Cobb.
that's
There
a
was,
good
man.
one because that's some bullshit from the States, which everyone seems to be talking about all the time.
Yeah.
Absolutely shameful. And the thing is, like, balance. Like there is no balance. Like at least America has Fox News, so there's at least some sort of counterpoint on the mainstream.
Yep.
We don't even have that in Canada. We don't have any right-leaning thing on TV whatsoever.
Nothing.
I'm trying to think of like the most the most right-leaning thing on Canadian television was Don Cherry, and now he's gone. Like Hockey Night in Canada was the only right-wing thing on the airwaves, and now even
Every
that
now and
is
then
taken
Evan
away.
Solomon wasn't bad, but he was still there. Like he was like he'd be okay on some stuff. Like every now and then some clips would come out. Like I'd say he's probably equal to Rosemary Barton now, where it's like sometimes they oppose the government, but most of the time they don't, right?
Yeah, man. It's it's hard to like any of them.
Yeah.
Like that you see on TV.
And again, though, this is where I've gotten so crusty as I've gotten older, where it's like, yeah, we just need enough opposition that these dishonest people are kept honest to some extent, right?
Yeah. And I'm just looking this up now, too. Like, National Post is supposed to be the more conservative news. And, like, when I Google National Post James Topp, nothing telling how he marched across the country even comes up in the headline.
These more conservative outlets, dude, even these more conservative outlets, when they link into something that's conservative and supports conservative values, it's usually like 3 news cycles past the point where it mattered.
Mm-hmm.
They'll come out and everybody's like, oh, good, they covered it. But it's like the news cycle's over, guys. Like, they came out after it was hot and did something. It's when we talk about controlled opposition, that's it. Like, that's how it's weaponized against us, right?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. It'll probably be a year from now where CBC will be like, oh, did you know a veteran marched across the country? And it's like, why didn't you talk about that at the time? Why is it always a year later, 9 months later that you guys actually talk about these stories?
Oh, dude, they're just coming out now and saying that any physical activity whatsoever would have reduced your risk of negative impacts from COVID. Like,
yeah, that's insane. Because you and I were conspiracy theories for even suggesting this 2 years ago, right? And it's like, oh, now that Washington Post has said it, it's totally a chipper
for
thought
the entire
idea.
history of humanity, like, and species in general, healthier individuals within species, substantially had longer lives and more longevity than those who were not healthy.
Yeah.
And they were like, you're a conspiracy theorist for saying this.
Yeah.
And now the news is coming and saying, hey, by the way, if you're healthy, if you're even remotely healthy, you have better outcomes. Like, can you not say the sky is blue in more easier terms than what they just said? It's like, what? Like, seriously, man, it's crazy.
Yeah. All right, so what's your number one, sir?
My number one is medical assistance in dying. doctor-assisted suicide. And I actually started with, one example. I told you this too at one point in time, Greg, where it was like, I was like a Paralympian veteran in desperate need of an in-home chairlift was offered doctor-assisted suicide as a solution to not having a chairlift. But since then, like 5 veterans have been offered suicide. The government of Canada is moving towards like influencing people with mental health issues to seek doctor, and I don't say MAID, it's doctor-assisted suicide, right?
Yeah.
Like this is what
Yeah.
we're doing here, right? The government has now moved forward on trying to make it so that children of the age of 12 can seek that, who are terminally ill, without the consent of their parents. And we know where that goes. That will then be transferred into mental health in some way, shape, or form. And it's like, I get it. A lot of the argument with medically assisted suicide is people are suffering terminally. Okay, I get it. That part makes sense. But people don't realize that the left wields these things as a sword to open the wound and then infect it with other stuff, right? So
Mhm.
we're in a situation where they did this thing where everybody's like, well, it makes sense. And by opening that door, they've now equipped the left with everything they need to now go do their homework and have mentally unhealthy people make sense to be suicided by doctors, to make mentally unhealthy children, have it make sense for them to be suicided by doctors. So the medical assistance in death is my number one in Canada because it's literally the government. And I'm going to use whataboutism here in a big way. The government is convincing people to commit suicide while at the same time complaining that there's too many people committing suicide with firearms, Greg. And
Yeah.
we need to disarm the population because of that. And it's like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy shit, dude.
And we have the best healthcare system in the world. It's free, and we need to cut costs by you ending your life.
Well, and not only that, if we get into the profit motive, like, what if it costs $10,000 to commit suicide? Like, you get into, and it's just like, dude, there's so many positives to the government pushing people to commit suicide via doctor. That it's
if you're like some money grubbing like big pharma person, what do you mean? There's so many benefits.
No. Come on now, man. Let's not smear the pharma people. Like, these are good people who are just trying to make people healthier, right?
Right. Yes.
The government wants no revenue from people killing themselves.
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with you, Greg? You're evil, man. Why would you say something like that? These people have been nothing but trustworthy.
Yeah.
Since
they would Big Pharma have a profit motive?
Never
happened. Never happened.
My number one is medical assistance in dying. It's fucking crazy to me that we're down this path, and now you can see where they've opened the door, and now they're talking about mental health. Now they're talking about children. And it's like, dude,
mature minors.
The slippery slope is not something you noticed. The slippery slope is a strategy. Once they open that door,
yeah,
they use the slippery slope to achieve their ultimate objective, right?
Yeah, and the MAID stuff is so it really is the most shocking. It probably easily does take the cake in terms of the most insane thing that's happened in this country. I think so.
I win number one.
You won number one.
You disagree on when? Oh,
no, you got it. You got it.
I gave you number 5, and I think I gave you was it 3 or 2?
It's not a contest. But if
I take number 1, then I won.
Of course. Well, you have me on your stream. It's amazing. But I do want to talk about MAID a bit more because it really, it's, a lot of these more, I'll say woke, like they apply this woke logic to climate change and to health and safety. Don't kill grandma. And like they've had like really dumb logic that really doesn't make sense. But, the COVID stuff slowly but surely kind of got really weird and kind of evil, but like this maid stuff is just straight up evil. Like this stuff isn't like kind of dumb. This stuff isn't kind of like a little bit misguided. This stuff is straight up evil, and like I don't even make sense how they've justified it and how they have people going along with this thinking it's anything but evil. You know, like it's
Dude,
mind blowing
to me. They came out with a children's workbook.
I saw that, and it's
and you know what? And there's a lot of people who are like, "Oh, it's trying to help kids understand what's happening." No, it's a fucking sales pitch, dude.
Yeah, it's totally
I went through
twisted.
every page of that thing. It's a sales pitch.
Yeah, and I follow this really woke account on Instagram. It's called like Woke Scientist or something, and it is the leading edge of woke dumb. I was going to use the R word. But we haven't dropped the R word, so we're not going to say it on stream.
You know what, though? We need to bring that back. We need to reclaim these words, dude. I'm telling you right now.
No, I think you're right. But and I think this was like right before MAID was like official. But she was basically saying, or they, you know, we need to destigmatize suicide. And like, you know, capitalism is so bad. Capitalism bad, existence bad. Why are you suffering to exist and live? That's never happened before. You know, human beings have never had to toil away.
It's not because anything bad's happened. It's because we've made everybody so fucking weak.
Right. But my point is like this woke account is literally making a woke argument to destigmatize suicide and glorify it and make it this thing that's like chic and cool. And yeah, maps.
Same thing.
Oh man, maps. Yeah, the whole map thing.
Let's destigmatize all of the things adverse to Christian values in society. Like, let's do that. Right?
It's a pretty common pattern in terms of you know what they're trying to undermine, right? Like it all
I'm
just
not
seemed
even
very...
a religious guy in any way, shape, or form, but I know what the foundation of our society is based upon, and I support that. And it's like, when you look at the way they're bringing the evils into society that the foundations of society are adverse to, there's only one objective that there could be in doing that. There's only one objective.
Satan?
It's either, dude, I am, so let's be clear. I'm not a religious dude, but I bet you, like, if me and somebody who was highly religious were to talk in terms of like our beliefs, it would be highly aligned, because what would be Satan to somebody else is just pure evil to me, right? Like, it's just evil. It's like it's and the evil, if you describe it properly, are the things that would absolutely disrupt the foundation of society and cause it to collapse. Like, there's a reason these concepts exist. It's because if we don't believe these things are evil, then they get in and they destroy the foundation of everything that we believe exists upon.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, so
yeah,
you don't have to be Christian to value that.
Yeah, and one of the devil's greatest tricks was convincing people he doesn't exist, right? And you know, I haven't always I was never really a Christian, but I have become one over the past 3 years. I'll tell you that. And I got to say, you know, even if you're not religious, there is a lot of lessons. Like, I'm really loving a lot of the frameworks and a lot of the concepts that I'm learning in Christianity when it comes to kind of identifying evil, like the one I just said, you know, like the devil tries to convince you he doesn't exist. And another thing that I've learned from Christianity, which I think is very handy and useful, is like, the devil doesn't come to you and with horns and like red and like looking all evil. He's an angel of light. He shows he's all charming. He looks great. He's all like persuasive and like handsome looking and all that. And then he tricks you and he messes with you. And I'd never heard that concept before until kind of getting into Christianity a bit. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's like Justin Trudeau. So like Justin Trudeau is the devil. That makes sense. But yeah, there's this made stuff is like, I think you're absolutely right, where people think, oh, it's not that bad. Oh, you know, telling kids about maps isn't that bad. Telling kids about, you know, like we're just letting them be free and to know about these things. No, you're inserting sexual ideas into the mind of a child long before they're ever going to have sex. Like, why is that a priority? Why is that something that you think is is something that we should be doing with children. Like, let them play soccer, bro.
Let's talk about suicide for a minute. And I know anybody who's considered it in their lives would agree with me here. I've been through rough times in my life where I've lost my path and I've been in a bad state. It's not something you think immediately needs to happen. It's a seed that gets planted.
Mm-hmm.
You start with, I wish I wasn't here. And then it blossoms into the worst case scenario.
It's an insidious, like a mental sort of.
Take a child
mm-hmm.
and convince them that not being here is an option. Right? Let's
do a study.
Take a child's mind and make them think that all the suffering they're going to encounter as a teenager doesn't have to happen because they're not here. Being a teenager fucking sucks, dude. I was a teenager. I was bullied. The only reason I'm as strong as I am today is because of how hard it was for me as a teenager. I'll tell you that right now. I actually value every bully I ever had because they made me who I am today. But take a child who's going through that and be like, you don't have to have that happen. Like, that doesn't need to happen to you. You don't have to be. There's a way out.
Yeah.
Implant that in their brain and see what the fuck happens. It's evil.
It is
pure
evil.
evil.
It is evil. And the way they pitch it is like, hey, is life getting you down? Hey, kid, you can just end it. And it's like, how is that not literally the devil whispering in your ear? Hey, you can just end it, right?
The workbook for MAID, when you read it, is exactly what you just described. It's like, it's just this. They just inject this drug.
It's just life. It's just your life. Like, you only get one of them, but whatever.
Dies. They're literally like, their lungs stop working. Their heart stops pumping. And it's a fucking sales pitch, dude.
It's gross.
Selling kids on suicide.
Gross.
It's the worst thing I ever saw. It's like, this is terrible stuff, man. No, modern people need to understand that there's an amount of suffering that you're going to encounter. And the amount of suffering in modern days is literally 100 times less than it was 50 years ago for the same person.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, and honestly, man, my philosophy is shut up, fucking bite your tongue, deal with your shit, and just focus on becoming stronger. But everything in society today is adverse to that.
Yeah.
It's about there's a way out. You shouldn't encounter that. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't experience that. You shouldn't be confused about sexuality. Like, just
become trans. Just become non-binary. Just kill yourself. Just.
Greg, before we jump off, can I share one story with you? You're Christian, right? You become more Christian.
Yep.
I'm going to share the story I have with you of when I was borderline like. I'm not, but this was a hard one for me. So I was talking. I was with a friend, and he was talking about Christianity and all this stuff and church, and like he wanted me to go to church with him the whole 9 yards. And you know what I said to him? He was like, he said, "I can tell you're not there yet." And I was like, "I'm not, because I believe in the values, I believe in the structure, I believe in what it's done for modern society." I haven't had an experience yet that brings me there, though. I just haven't seen that. And you know what he said to me that actually like completely messed with my brain?
What's that?
He was like, "Who the fuck do you think you are? That the Lord needs to come down and give you an experience." And I was like, that's a good point.
Yeah.
He's like 8 billion people on the planet today. And he's like, you're waiting for an experience? And I was like, wow.
Where's my divine experience? I never got one.
Where's it? Talk about entitlement, right? That actually almost pushed me over the edge. I'm still considering and not sure, but it was like, that killed that argument. 100% for me.
My argument is more of a practical one, where it's like being an atheist, thinking we're just space dust or whatever. That's just predisposes you to being depressed, being selfish, being a hedonist, like being somebody who doesn't help other people. And I think that's a pretty strong argument in general. And you might say, oh, I can get that from spirituality or whatever, and that's fair enough. But recently, I had a friend of a friend's cousin visiting, and they had a 10-month-old. And I was just watching this 10-month-old be a 10-month-old baby. And I just had this feeling come over me of like, God is so real. Like he's so real. Like there's no way that this was just like a mistake. Oh, whoops. We like made the baby like that because of like the evolution or whatever. Like, no, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. There's definitely definitely some guy.
One last thing before we go off here, but stay on after we end this.
Sure,
I still
sure.
want to just chat with you.
Yep.
One last thing. Just keep in mind, there's people who aren't atheists who are still in that zone where it's like, what the fuck is going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I'm not atheist. I'm not there. I'm just not fully there. I'm like,
yep.
Dude, 90% of the things are what I want them to be. Yeah. I'm still just like, oh, this is still a big thing, right?
I do think it's important to make the distinction too that I am very skeptical of organized religion. And I think there's a difference between the organized institutions of religion and the actual like Christianity, like the book itself. Like I think like the real Christianity or any sort of religion, it's like a real personal thing. It's a real like personal practice and belief that you kind of live.
It is, dude. It is.
And like there's a lot of things that can come from the religious institution, but there's also a lot of bad things that can come from the religious institution as well. So, but are we about to wrap it up? Do we want to do any honorable mentions for the year? I kind of had.
I don't have many honorable mentions. Like for me, dude, we covered a lot of stuff here, and geez, we're almost 2 hours in. Like this was a lot of conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually like, this pushed me beyond even honorable mentions. I'm like, wow, we talked about a lot of stuff.
I do want to give a quick shout out to Jeremy McKenzie, because in terms of an insane thing that happened this year is. He got thrown in jail for basically being a popular podcaster, and the House of Commons was talking about Diagolon, which is a meme country that he made up. Like this is insane that this happened. This was just kind of like the cherry on top of the year, and once again, you know, a Canadian veteran being completely thrown in jail and thrown under the bus by the Canadian establishment. I had to shout him out because it was an insane year, and it definitely was an insane year for him and what he had to go through. So,
Greg, I want to throw something out there about Jeremy too.
Sure.
I've been a longtime follower of Jeremy, and again, there's lots of controversial stuff that comes out of that. First thing I'll say is the Diagolon movement and the way that disrupted, I guess, Canadian politics, and that was one of the funniest things I've seen. that was like. Dude, I roared watching the commentary around that. And some of the videos those guys released made me laugh as well. Mm-hmm. And I think the other piece about that is, like, what I would frame it as is Jeremy's being framed as an extremist when I think every single person who watches what's happened with Jeremy has people within their own friend circle who are similar and saying similar things the whole 9 yards. So I think the government has gotten a hold of a guy like Jeremy and really tried to make them, you know, that sacrificial lamb here. When in actuality, one thing I can say I appreciate about him is he's come back swinging, man.
Absolutely.
He's coming back swinging. He is not backing down. He is fighting back. He is like, and again, I would just challenge everybody to think through their friends and tell me if they are not surrounded by people who hold similar thoughts. I guess that's what I would leave that at, right?
Yeah. And the reason why it's so important, like, even if you disagree with Jeremy, like, you know, he's just the most vocal person who's most aggressive and charming and persuasive when it comes to criticizing the government. If they were to have successfully subdued him, and scared his whole following, which didn't happen. But if they were to have been successful with that, not even a little bit. But if they were to have been successful with that, guess who's next? It's someone like me or you next, Rob. Like it's somebody's next on the chopping block after Jeremy. So like it's really important, even if you don't agree with them 100%. We need to be there to stand up for this guy because it's, you know,
dude,
look at history.
So one of the ways Canadians are framed is that we don't have freedom of speech. That man exercised what would be
Mm-hmm.
the equivalent of freedom of speech in the United States, but it's unacceptable because our Constitution and our Charter of Rights and Freedoms is interpreted in a way that he's not entitled to the speech that he spoke, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that what you just raised is a hugely important point, is that when that erodes, that's a huge problem for regular people and they
Yep.
just don't realize it, right?
Absolutely.
So, dude, I had a great time talking to you tonight. This was awesome. It was beyond what I expected it to be. I actually framed it as, when I posted it, is like, this is gonna be fun as hell. This was more than fun as hell. This was great. I really enjoyed it. So I hope we can do it again. I'm sure lots of other people do. And thanks for your time, man. I really appreciate it. You're a huge up and comer. You're like, I think I told you right at the gates, I was like, I'm just glad I got you before your inbox got too full, basically, right?
We're all going to rise up together, man. There's a lot of room in
We will.
Canadian alternative media, and we're all going to be there, holding each other up, man, and lifting and inspiring each other. You know, much
100%.
greater things to come. We're going to turn this country around together.
Thank you, everybody who tuned in. And I've got so many comments to go through here. It's not even fit, but I had a great time. I hope everybody else did. And we will be doing this again soon.
Yes.
Thanks again, Greg. Much appreciated.
Yep. Talk to you later. Talk to you soon.